It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, May 3rd, and so happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start the day together with the Lord. So, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, the Bible talk on Elijah, and of course commentaries and news on what is happening around the world today in this history. All right, so how are you doing, everyone? It is Wednesday, and of course, it's going to be a wonderful day because we have the service tonight. And more importantly, let's make sure we pray for our leaders. It's not easy to make a sermon. Pray for your leaders. Make sure that they receive the inspiration of the Holy Spirit and preach it with the Holy Spirit so you be inspired and receive the fire. And also make sure you encourage your leaders because they're doing such an amazing job. And encourage them after, give them good feedback and, you know, what they can change to make it better and better. All right? If you haven't yet, make sure you leave a like or comment because one of the biggest things that we're looking for, like one of the big things that we want here, especially on this platform, is building the community. Right? Leave a like to show that you're liking this content that we're bringing out. And also leave some comments just so we know how things are going with you. If you need prayer or anything, just leave it in the comments below. And super thankful for everyone joining us here every single weekday. Actually, every single day because we have all this content coming out on Saturdays. And hopefully Sundays we'll have some more content coming out too. So let's get up, support each other each and every day. So first thing I want to talk about today is about timestamps. So I talked about this on Monday. If you guys can help me out with timestamps. And you know, Charlie already put up timestamps too, but he didn't do it the right way and I have to correct it. But the one thing I realized from these timestamps is that I'm lazy. That's what I realized, right? I was asking you guys to do it, but then it doesn't come out on time. And, you know, these podcasts are daily, which means that if someone doesn't put it out on time, then, you know, these will last about 36 hours before the next podcast comes out. So I'm just like, you know what? I got to stop being lazy and I got to do the timestamps myself. So I will do it. I am sorry. I will do it. I'm going to do it. All right. So yes, starting from today's, you're going to see that on the YouTube timeline, you're going to see that there's going to be timestamps on these, on the audio and the video and stuff like that too. So you can skip to the parts that you want to go to. All right. Today. So yeah, yes, I admit it. I am lazy. Forgive me, God, for my laziness. Yeah. Also, this morning, I had a really good workout, and I'm working out really well right now over here. I'm working out like 6, 7 in the morning, but today I went to go check out my weight. And I was a little scared because I've been eating super well over here. Of course, healthy in the mornings, but I eat super well. But surprisingly, I lost weight. I'm down to 179, which is exactly what my health scan told me. Like 179 is a good weight for me. But I'm going to say I'm a little bit sad. And this is something that only the guys would understand, right? The girls are not going to understand this, but I feel more like a man at 180. I just do. I feel less of a man at 179, and I feel like a man at 180. I don't know why. It's just a guy thing. You know, guys, we work out. We brag about our weight. Like, oh, yeah, I gained 5 pounds. Oh, how much you weigh? 220. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. And this is a guy thing. We work out to get big. We want to get swole, right? And those guys don't know, like girls won't know this. We have like a guys fitness chat room and we post our pictures, we post all other different things. It's just a guy thing. We work out to get big, swole. It's a pride thing. And when I found out that I lost a pound, I felt like I lost a pound of my manhood. I don't know. That's just me, right? It's kind of like, you know, if you talk to a girl like you talk to a guy, the girls would basically hate us because, you know, we'll go up to a guy and we'll be like, dude, you're huge. Imagine saying that to a girl. The girl would cry and then get depressed and hate the guy for the rest of their life kind of thing, right? And, you know, for guys, we want to hear that. We do. It's like, dude, I packed on like 10 pounds of muscle, whatever it is, right? Like guys are like, man, I gained 5 pounds. The girls are like, man, I lost 5 pounds. And the girls are happy when they lose and the guys are happy when they gain. It's just kind of the way that we think. So, yeah, I am 1 pound less a man than I was before. But, you know, it's just, you know, maybe you'll hear some more about this in the man cave too. I'm back in Canada right now. It's been 1 week now. I've been here for 1 week, still going over my jet lag and stuff. But I was able to start talking and meeting some members in the U.S. and Canada, slowly getting more and more info about the situation. And it's nothing surprising. It's just a headache. Just hearing the details, all the stuff that I missed, getting that all at once. It's just kind of shocking to hear everything in detail all at once. And it makes me even more thankful that I was in Malaysia this whole time. Because I almost felt like, because in Malaysia, I felt like I had too much time. It was so relaxed. But but now that I look at it, it made me very calm and cool about the situation. And I can be more objective about it, right? And now that I'm back in the time zone, I have contacts all over US and Canada. I'm in the same time zone as everyone else. And you kind of hear everything just like, wow. Like, I'm not surprised because, we've heard all the news anyways, but it's just like, wow. Okay. So when you hear it in detail, it's a little bit more shocking, right? And it's just kind of a headache. But if I were to say the only thing that really, really shocks me, to be honest, is when people accuse, like how they accuse and the rhetoric they used. Like people who talk about the accusations, the only thing that surprises me is if I'm like, really? They said that? Like, that's kind of shocking. Like, they'll start cussing and saying swear words and stuff about people, about Sunseam, whatever it is. And for me, that's kind of the one that's a little bit more disappointing because these are all people that I know. Like, really? Really? Right? And, I can understand the emotional aspect of how things are. Like, I understand that. But I would be more understanding if you were the person actually accusing and you talk like that. That would be something that I would understand a lot more. Or if you were the family or whatever it is, right? But if you're just someone from the outside who doesn't really, really know that it's true or not and starts talking in that way, for me, that's it's just a sign of character weakness for me. It's a sign of character. Yeah. Because I'm just like, it's a little bit strong, especially as much as people, if you're looking at the evidence in an objective way, there's no evidence. Like, there's nothing out there right now to this date for both trials, both the 2009, this one here, there's actually zero evidence, whether it's DNA, whether it's something that is absolute where Sunseam confesses it, or you see an actual video or a real audio of it. Of course, they try to do it this time, but obviously the audio is not real, right? From looking at all the forensics on it, right? So if you weren't actually there, are you just I just can't understand how you could be that emotional when you're not 100% sure. I'm not gonna say 100%, beyond reasonable doubt. It's just very. That's the thing that's kind of awkward to me. Is why would you curse so much, right? It's like an what's that? Overcompensating, and that's why for me that's a little bit weird for me. So like I said, I'm just more thankful now that I was in Malaysia this entire time, and I'm able to be someone a little bit more like I said before. When I say I am objective, I'm not saying that I'm in the middle. I don't think that's the proper way to do it, right? Objective means the evidence that comes, I have to be objective about it. How real is it, right? I'm not going to go into it emotionally. I got to look at it very objectively. And like I told you guys, the best way to do it is if you took that evidence you just gave to me and I put it into a court, would it be enough? And the answer is so far 0. It's just not enough. Right? I have to look at it objectively from a law perspective. You can't do it objectively from a feeling point of view. It just makes no sense. Oh, I know this person, so why would they lie? That makes no sense. You take that to court, it'll never hold. No one will ever accuse someone because, oh, I know this person, so they wouldn't lie. That makes no sense, right? So if you haven't seen it, most of it's hearsay too. We also know that KJS, she said she never saw anything. The person who used to be an IMD never saw anything. It's just based on what other people are saying. It's all hearsay, and that would not hold up in court also. So that's why I'm saying that those people that are cursing and talking to people cursing, it doesn't make any sense because it's all based on hearsay and nothing is absolute or enough. It would just never hold in court, right? Someone did ask me and says, you're really close to KJS, so did you know anything about what was happening before this actually happened? I'm like, it's true, I'm close to her, but I didn't see anything like this happen. I couldn't even see it. I didn't see it coming. And, for me, I'm just even more thankful that God protected me from going to Korea to be in the mix of it. Like, I had a chance to go to Korea last year instead of coming home to Vancouver for that 1 year, to LA and then Vancouver for 1 year, right? And I didn't go. Instead, I went to LA and Vancouver. And I'm so glad that I went there instead because, I would have been at Whitestone with KJS and I would have been influenced. And I'm not going to deny it. I would have been influenced. And why would you know that? How do I know I'd be influenced? Because I want everyone to think about pre-March KJS when she's Joan. She had authority, she had reputation, respect. She was number 2. She was the closest to Sunsteam, everything else. Like, there's nothing wrong. You would think that everything she says is right, wouldn't you? It's absolutely, yeah. Pre-March, everyone trusted her, right? And I would be there for a year before this situation even happened, and we'd be sitting there like, oh, like I probably would have been influenced. So I was super thankful that I didn't go to Korea at that time. So, this made me think about the timeline, right? The timeline of how all this actually happened. So I'm going to go over a quick timeline of what I know so far. And, when I look at all the evidence, it definitely, this plan is not just a recent thing. This has been over a year, maybe even 2 or 3. I don't know, but I know at least we can go back more than a year. How do I know that? Because, we have to, for her to change that, people don't change quickly like that. It takes time, right? Or it takes a big plan, a long plan. And one of the first signs that is kind of weird that we know that Sunsteam and KJS were not they were not on the same page, and there's a big gap between them. The earliest one we know is it has to do with Sunsteam's response to KJS's actions when it comes to marriage, particularly of like stars. And it was basically what she did was she opened the door bigger than it really should have been. And what does that mean? It means that people need to know that since 2018, stars were, especially males, were like, hey, Sunsteam's pretty open. Like, yeah, if you want to get married, go get married. It's up to you guys, right? So that's not false. That's not a wrong thing she did in that level. But it's just that she opened it so large and she made it seem like that was the only thing. Like that's the best way to do it. And she getting rid of the star department, whatever it is, which seems like, no, we're not getting, what are you guys talking about kind of thing. So that there's, the gap started from there, which when did she start talking about that? We're talking a year before. During the Superstar services, she had also like the education with the male stars in September. So we're talking September and months before that, talking about it during the Superstar services. So we're talking about over a year this has been planned, right? Over a year this has already been planned, right? So what happened is everything begins to start. It looks like it started in America with the first accusation, right? And how do I know it started from last year around December? It's because I was one of the first people to be contacted, right? So at that time, there's only about 5 people that knew this accusation, right? And when the accusers came to me and said, "Oh my gosh, this is what's happening, and Sunsteam is guilty," or whatever it is, from last year in December when they talked to me. So it should, I'm sure it was probably even November, but when they talked to me, they're like, "Oh, and KJS is on our side and she believes it." Now, for me is because I'm close to her and I was like, no way. There's no way she would be on, she'd be like with this. There's no way, right? So even though they kept saying to me that KJS is on their side, I couldn't believe it, right? And, at that point, like I said, in December, there's very few people that knew, and then things started to spread in January. So January, it just explodes, people talking and talking behind the scenes, and it spreads from here, like it was in the U.S., in Europe. U.S. and Europe were the 2 hot spots. It went to Canada and other Western nations, right? In February, which was quite interesting, February is when the first lawsuit against KJS for money embezzlement was filed and investigations began. And then March 3rd is when Netflix came out. And of course, public outrage and the media comes against Sunsteam and Providence. And then probably a week after this, 2 weeks after this, March 3rd, you had the law firm that represented Sunstein had to step down because of public outcry. So remember, guys, if anyone ever says to you that, oh, these lawyers quit because they knew they're going to lose, that's not the reason. It's because of public outcry. Then March 12th is when KJS spoke about it with her own lips that she believes that Sunstein is guilty. And honestly, that was the time where things made more sense to me, that this was not something that she's just saying, but basically, even from December, when they were telling me that KJS was on their side, I couldn't believe it, right? But when it came out of her own lips, and I was like, okay, that makes sense now. So she was talking to them, so it's something that has been planned, right? So when she started that, of course, you had the big uproar and such. April comes along, and more people begin to accuse Sunstein, and investigations to begin there. And then, of course, we heard about the police raid on KJS's house and also the headquarters in Wonwingdong. And then KJS is detained by police and being investigated, and she's still in jail right now. April 24th, Sunstein has his detainment is extended up to another 6 more months, right? So, it's quite interesting just to see the timeline of how things have happened. And as more and more information comes out, you kind of get an idea of how long this has been brewing. It's not something that's been just happening right now. Oh, it's just she decided in March that she's going to believe it. No, it's been brewing for a while. It's been planned, right? And, just to see how things have turned out, if you look at the people, like I said, if you look at the people who are accusing Sunstein right now and how they're working in each country and how fervent they are, if you look at it objectively and all the evidence they keep trying to give us, there's zero evidence that shows that Sunstein is guilty. There's zero. Absolutely zero. Yeah, there's nothing there. It's all speculation or opinion. Like basically, if all the evidence they showed me, they were actually showing it as lawyers in a court, the objections would keep coming out, speculation or opinion. Those two objections would constantly come out, no matter what, right? Because they're like, look at the video of Sunstein in a tent with 2 girls. That must mean he's a sexual predator. And that's just speculation, or that's opinion. All right. How do you jump from there to that? Right? So, all the different evidence they show is like, he said this, so it must mean he has sexual problems. Right? But the jump is way too far. So even when I look at this, look at it objectively. Look at it when it comes to court. When it comes to personal, like when we're talking to each other personally, we can easily influence each other with our words, with our status, and all these other different things. When you take it to court, you can't do it that way. It's going strictly by evidence. And all the things they show, there's zero evidence. It's all speculation and opinion, right? And like, how do I know that KGS is talking about her opinion or hearsay? Because she testified she never saw anything, but just believes it to be true. The person at IMD, exact same thing. Never saw it, but believes it to be true because of all the accusations, right? So when you think about it, it's like even KJS and the other people who are at the top, it's all hearsay. They never saw it. So now it gets to the point, like we said, KJS is detained in jail for the investigation for aiding and abetting a crime, and she's also being investigated for money embezzlement at the moment. And the evidence they have for this lawsuit is basically 9 properties in her name, her brother's name, and another person. And KJS's testimony is that some properties were gifts from members, and other properties were bought with church money, but approved by Sunstein, in which Sunstein replied that he has no idea about the property, right? So we'll see what happens with this. We're not sure what's going to happen, and now, what are we doing? We're just waiting for the verdict of the first trial, right? And, the next court trial is May 18th, so it's a couple weeks away, and it's going to be can you submit the evidence of Maple's Netflix audio, which looks like it probably won't be put through. And that's her main thing that she's using, because that's the big thing. If it's true, that is 100% real evidence. That Netflix audio. But already all the forensics on it show that it's not real. Right? So, that the only thing that they have as real evidence that Sunstein actually did something is fake so far, right? So, and then of course, after that first trial, we have expecting an appeal in the Supreme Court, and then we're also expecting Netflix season 2, right? So that is something that's quite interesting, and I think it's something that we do have to, we just got to be ready for it, guys. Every time when the first trial verdict comes out, be ready. Things are going to go crazy again, right? When it goes to the appeal, Supreme Court, every time the result comes out, there's going to be news. Netflix season 2 comes out, there's going to be news, right? So we got to be prepared for at least 4 more things, big things that'll happen this year, right? But I think that we're all in a better position now, and we're much more reasonable, rational in this time, not thinking about it emotionally, and really, get our hearts and our minds to think about this carefully, right? So I'm very grateful, thankful for this platform that we can all listen to this, and we can kind of get an idea of the timeline and how things have started. And we're knowing that this is not something that has just started, right? That she just made up her mind in March to be like this. It's been planned for a while. And we could say at least a year. So far from looking at the evidence, at least a year when her and Sunstein didn't see eye to eye. They're not on the same page. And we're probably, it'll probably be, most likely, just my opinion, is going to be even further than a year. Because it takes time to plan something out like this. It really does, right? So that is something that I hope that all of us can pray for and know deeply in our hearts that this is a situation we're dealing with right now. I do have an update on something that's happening with Sunstein's situation right now. And I think that this is very, very important for all of us to know, and we need to pray about this. We have to absolutely pray about this. This just came out in the news in Korea. And here it is. Basically, what of the news is, the title is that Sunstein should be prevented from meeting his lawyers, which is quite interesting. So this is the article. The article says, interviews with lawyers take place in a reception room. Not interview, basically it's Sunstein meeting his lawyers. It takes place in a reception room without a glass partition, and prison guards cannot hear the contents of the interview because of lawyer-client privilege. And there is no limit on the number of time of interviews. So, the lawyer can come in anytime he wants, as many times as he wants to, right? Now, think about what's happening now. This is a crazy part. A representative from the government, Representative Park Bum-gae, says, considering that the frequency of Sunstein's lawyer interviews is quite different from that of ordinary prisoners, it is doubtful that Sunstein is abusing his lawyer interview time as if it were his personal leisure time. The correction authorities in the Korean Bar Association basically saying they're going to make a correction with the Korean Bar Association, and we have to investigate and prepare preventative measures at the level. Basically says so. In this regard, on the 3rd of May, which is today, there's going to be a small meeting room of the National Assembly Library, and a discussion session will be held on Sunstein's status report and system to prevent abuse of access to lawyers, and discuss the issue of abuse of access to, basically they're going to try to get him to, not beat his lawyers anymore. They're going to put into law, which is kind of crazy. Because as you heard at the very beginning, what does it say? There is no limit of times you can meet your lawyer, right? Especially if it's very, very important, whatever it is, right? And it's the same in Canada. It's the same in America. It's the same in Australia. There is no limit. But it seems like they're going to try to limit now through constitution. They'll put a law in place where you cannot meet your lawyer more than this amount of times, right? So this is something we need to really pray about. Can you imagine they want to change the law for this? Right? This is something we need to band together and pray for, right? And this is something think about it. If it was some really, really rich person, right, that was in jail and they were doing it this way, I bet you no one would say a single thing about it. But here it is. It's Sunstein, right? In this, we're going to prevent you from meeting your lawyers. And they're speculating that there's nothing important, because you know what? It's lawyer-client privilege, which means no one can know what they're talking about. No one's going to be in that room, not even the guards. Which means what? Yeah, that's part of the law, lawyer-client privilege. So they are guessing. They are kind of assuming that they're not talking about the trial. because it's so many times. So this is something I do think we really, really have to pray about. And, for us too, we want to get the word. We want to be the people that where Sunsteam's taking care, he takes care of everything during those meetings. And I really hope that all of us can pray for this so that this will not happen. This cannot happen. So let's really pray together and make sure that this gets resolved. That's something I really, really am hoping for more than anything else. All right? So I hope that all of us can pray for this and make sure, like they're having the meeting today in Korea. So make sure that we really pray about this as one of our big prayers. Like, God, you got to stop this. Why are they doing this just because of Sunsteam kind of thing, right? It's part of the law. That's why they have the law. There's no time limits. In any country, when it comes to the law, lawyer-client privilege, they can do whatever they want. They can meet as many times as they want. And because it's secretive, they don't know what he's talking about, they're thinking that what he's doing is wrong. That's just an assumption. It's speculation, right? They have no idea if it's true or not. So that is something I did want to bring up so that all of us can pray about it. All right. So I hope that's something that helps you guys out with your prayers a lot more. Let's move into our first break.
Yeah, every moment with you in my life lasts far beyond time, for all eternity. All the days we smiled, all the days we assured one another are precious memories. So we won't always be roses and sunshine. There are mountains, there are cliffs we must climb. But even so, I want to go with you. I want to go with you where the light brightly shines. More than before,
Even more than yesterday.
more today.
Love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every
As
day.
the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You've become irreplaceable to me, and really I
Only you.
love you.
Love you. Only you. Love you. Only you. Love. True love, how can it be explained? You can't express it, no matter what words you use, they're not enough. Your existence is love in itself, being with you each second, each hour, every single day. I want to talk of all things, even the small things, oh thank you. I love you so much, can't keep it to myself. You are the reason I am living, I'm loving you, I live in you, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like your heart is a dream, but this is far more real now than anything. When you're beside me, there's no one so close, there is no one else more precious to me. So we won't always be roses and sunshine. There are mountains, there are cliffs we must climb. But even so, I want to go with you. I want to go with you where the light brightly shines. More than before,
Even more than yesterday.
more today.
Love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every
As
day.
the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You've become irreplaceable to me, and really I
Only you.
love you. Even as time goes on, our love for each other never changes or fades. I look forward to making myself to match you more perfectly now. More than before,
Even more than yesterday.
more today.
Love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every
As
day.
the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You've become irreplaceable to me, and really I more
Only
than
you.
before.
Even more than yesterday.
More today.
Love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every
As
day.
the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You
you, I live in you, like the air that surrounds me, like the air that I breathe.
I'm loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you. We'll be together like this, live forever loving you.
I'm loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you, like the air that surrounds me, like the air that I
I'm
breathe.
loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you. We'll be together like this, live forever loving you.
So let's get into today's second section, which is on Bible talk. And especially with this week's message, we're going to go over the story of Elijah. But I want to go a little bit more in depth, right? So we can understand this, the story of Elijah, especially knowing the background, the political background, what was going on there, right? So let's talk about Elijah. And I want everyone to have a clear idea of what was going on during that time first. So one of the things we know is before Elijah, it was, this is after the unified kingdom splits up. So after Solomon died, the kingdom split between his two sons. So the southern kingdom was ruled by Rehoboam, that was the righteous side, and the northern kingdom by Jeroboam. So Jeroboam didn't want all his people going down to Jerusalem, which was in the southern kingdom, especially for the festivals. And he was afraid that he would lose the people from the north because they kept going down to the temple and celebrating the festivals together, right? So what Jeroboam did is he actually set up temples of worship in the northern kingdom. He set up one temple in the north, which was in Dan, and one in the southern part, which was at Bethel. Now, in those temples, he put golden calves that the people could worship. Now, Israel quickly returned to idolatry. And, basically, that sounds like the story of Moses, right? When Moses went up into Mount Sinai for 40 days, the people couldn't wait, so they threw all their gold into a fire. And out popped a golden calf, and they began to worship it. So, you don't have to go too far to see the same old things troubling the nation of Israel. So this thing Jeroboam did, he did the exact same thing. He set up two temples within his half of the land, and within those temples he put golden calves so that the people would worship them and not Jehovah. So idolatry was beginning to spread within the land. So now we're going to be introduced to this king Ahab. And what scripture says about him is that he actually did more evil than all that were before him. Not a good introduction to this king, obviously, right? So it says in 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 31, he not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. So Ahab is the king of Israel at this time when Elijah comes into the scripture. And it also says that it was a trivial thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam. And those sins, as mentioned above, were setting up temples with golden calves to stop the people going to Jerusalem to worship. For Ahab, this was just kind of a of the moment thing, something of little importance to him. It didn't really mean that much. But when he was introduced to Jezebel, right, which is she's well known as a strong-willed woman in contrast to Ahab, who was pretty weak. And obviously it was an arranged marriage because she was the princess of the Sidonians who came from the region of Tyre. And if you know anything about Tyre in scripture, Ezekiel talks about Tyre, and it has, he has a ton of things to say about the king of Tyre. The king of Tyre actually personifies Satan himself in his attitudes in raising himself up. So Jezebel came from this region, and she introduced into Israel all of these foreign gods and foreign acts of worship to them. So she introduced Baal, right? Baal worship. So she gets, Jezebel is also mentioned in the book of Revelation, right? In Jesus' letter to Thyatira, where he is commending all the churches and rebuking them for their strength and weaknesses. And when it came to this church, he said, "You have allowed this woman to seduce you with her teachings." So the actual spirit of Jezebel is one that wants to lead people astray. And what you see with this woman, Jezebel, is that she is really, really strong, really active, has come into power with a king that is quite weak. So she actually changes the direction of Ahab. So at first with Ahab, pluralism was okay. In other words, you could worship Jehovah, you could worship Baal, and it was fine. You could worship anyone you wanted. However, it didn't stay that way with Jezebel. It wasn't long before she was killing off all of the Lord's prophets and tearing down all of the altars that remained unto Jehovah and planting Asherah shrines everywhere throughout the land. When she started off, it was okay to worship both, but she ended up destroying or trying to destroy any mention of Jehovah or Yahweh throughout the land. So Jezebel introduces Baal worship. And if you guys want to know who Baal was, he was a Canaanite god, a male deity that she brought in, and Baal was the god of rain and fertility. And it was the god of the crops, kind of like a farming god. So whenever they wanted to pray for rain, they would pray to Baal. So she really was the main instigator in leading Ahab astray, but also she led the people in this type of worship throughout the whole land, right? So this is kind of like the background of the situation. So you're like, oh, this is what was going on, more deeply, this is what was going on during the time of Elijah, right? So Elijah is considered the second greatest prophet of the entire Old Testament. That's why you'll see in Matthew 17 at the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus was talking to both Moses and Elijah. Right? So Elijah is first mentioned in 1 Kings chapter 17, where we know this is where it turns into the story of Elijah and the ravens that we know, right? So in 1 Kings chapter 17, he basically proclaims a drought as a penalty for the evil deeds of the kings of Israel. And of course, during this time, ravens brought him food. And, we know this story, right? Until the river dried up. And the Lord told him to visit a widow in Zarephath for food and water. And of course, the second miracle was flour. The jar of flour, jug of oil did not run dry while he was there. And then, of course, at the very end, the widow's son died. And Elijah pleaded with the Lord and resurrected the child. Okay? So then it moves into, after this happens, Elijah presents himself to King Ahab. And he says, bring all the prophets of Baal and Asherah on Mount Carmel. So there's 850 of them, along with all the people of Israel. Because you need to show the people, in front of all of them that, this is something, let me show you who the true God of Israel is. So he said, let's all prepare a sacrifice to the Lord. And whichever caught fire would then demonstrate who was a true God. And then, of course, the worshipers of Baal went first, called upon him from morning until noon, no answer. And then, of course, we know the story. Elijah rebuilt the altar of the Lord, prepared the sacrifice, poured 4 jugs of water on it. He called upon the Lord, and the Lord answered him with fire down from heaven, right? So they kill off all the prophets of Baal were all seized and killed. And when King Ahab told his wife, Jezebel, who's the strong-willed one, she vowed to kill Elijah. So Elijah was terrified and fled into the desert where he prayed for the Lord to take his life, right? So he basically wants to die. Then he fell asleep under a broom tree, and then a messenger from the Lord came to him twice, urging him to eat and drink. And after doing so, he journeyed 40 days in the wilderness to Mount Horeb, where he hid in a cave. And the voice of the Lord came to him and commanded him to stand out on the mountain. So this is where he begins, this is where he actually meets with God. So at first, a violent wind comes, then an earthquake, then a fire, but every time Elijah would not come out, right? And the Lord was not in any of those. Instead, he spoke to Elijah in a quiet whisper, right? And the conversation between God and Elijah was, God says to him, "Why are you here, Elijah?" And Elijah says, "I have been most zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, but the Israelites have forsaken your covenant. They have destroyed your altars and murdered your prophets by the sword. I alone remain, and they seek to take my life." Then God says, "Go back. Take the desert road to Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king of Aram. You shall also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king of Israel, and Elisha, son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah, as prophet to succeed you. Anyone who escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill. Anyone who escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. But I will spare 7,000 in Israel, every knee that has not bent to Baal, every mouth that has not kissed him." That's like in 1 Kings chapter 19, right? So after Elijah receives these instructions, Elijah returns to civilization. And of course, he recruits Elisha to minister with him and of course, eventually succeed him. So soon after, King Ahab died, right? So King Ahab dies now, and he's succeeded by his son Ahaziah. And Ahaziah suffers an injury, and he seeks the assistance of the god of Ekron to see whether he would recover. Now, Elijah instead confronts Ahaziah for rejecting the Lord, which obviously made him angry. And in his rage, Ahaziah then sent a captain with 50 men to kill Elijah, right? And, then what happens is fire came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. Then a second time, the king sent 50 men, and they were again struck down with fire. A third commander came, and he begged Elijah to spare the lives of him and his men. The Lord told Elijah not to be afraid of them, so he went down with them to the king. And he told the king that because he turned away from the Lord, he would die. And true to Elijah's warning, the king was struck down by the Lord. Now, what happens next is, this is like the ascent of Elijah. So when Elijah and Elisha traveled from Bethel to Jericho, Elijah tried to leave Elisha, but Elisha would not let him. And the other prophets of the cities asked him repeatedly whether he knew that Elijah would leave him. And Elisha responded that he did. And after they crossed the Jordan, Elijah said to Elisha if there was anything he could do before he was taken up into heaven. And we know the story in 2 Kings chapter 2. Elisha asked for a double portion of his spirit, right? And Elijah said that was a difficult request, but that it would come to pass if he was able to see him taken up. Then, of course, Elisha sees a fiery chariot and horses came between them, and Elisha saw a whirlwind take Elijah to heaven, right? So that's kind of the story that we see of Elijah. And of course, when you look at the way people see him in the former faith, Elijah, he basically faced adversity and discouragement, and he remained faithful. And throughout the Bible, he's held up as an example of godliness and might. Not only is he mentioned later in the Old Testament, but also in all 4 Gospels and 2 epistles, and he even appears in the Transfiguration with Jesus, right? And, when we understand the story of Elijah, one of the things that we do know is, he comes back again, from Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 and 6, it says that Elijah will come back before the great dreadful day of the Lord. And we also know that's coming from John the Baptist. And a lot of times we wonder why John the Baptist actually failed, right? Why he couldn't do things properly. And the one thing we will understand is that you kind of see the conditions set by Elijah. Even though he was second greatest in all the Old Testament, he did commit like a great mistake too. That after he defeated the 850 prophets of Baal and Asherah, the next day Jezebel said he's going to kill him, and he was so afraid. He said, "God, kill me. I give up." Basically, something was saying that this was him saying, "I give up. I don't want to do this anymore." And this is kind of him giving up on his mission, and God had no choice but to succeed him with Elisha. Right, so we even see that there is kind of some type of failure with Elijah too, where he could have gone even further in his mission and become even stronger, but the condition was set, and he actually, basically gave up in the middle of his mission, right? So that is something that we have to look at and say, yeah, he did make kind of a big mistake in the middle of his mission too, and he ended his mission quite short. And it wasn't because God wanted to take him away; it was mainly because he kind of gave up instead. So that is something to take into consideration when you look at all the John the Baptist in the in the Old Testament plus New Testament and even the complete Testament time. All 3 of them have kind of followed the same condition, right? So that is kind of the story, right? I hope it's something that you guys can learn a lot from, knowing the background, what was happening during the time of Elijah, and knowing that this is kind of his story in a nutshell, and it's something that you guys can read on your own also. All right, so there it is, guys. That is the Bible talk for today. Hope you guys learned a lot about Elijah. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Would love to hear what you guys think about that too. All right, so let's move into our second break.
Sometimes I wonder what heaven will be like and how we'll spend all eternity. The ones who raptured will see for themselves, they'll experience that world eternally. Though many come to this great world of providence, only some unite with the Trinity.
myself to act perfectly.
All right, so let's get into our final section for today. And of course, every single Wednesday, we do have Health is Happiness. This is a great episode with lots of people contributing to it. If you also are someone who is like a health expert or studying it or whatever it is, go ahead and you could talk to Julius and he'll be able to hook you up so you can do a couple episodes too. Today, we have physiotherapist in the making. This is Yuen Yu from Singapore, and today she's going to talk about something that I need a lot of help in, and she's going to talk about how to take care of your joints. Yes, it sounds like something that an old person really needs like me. So everyone, please welcome from Singapore, this is Yuen Yu with Health is Happiness.
Hello everyone, my name is Yuen Yu and I'm from Singapore, currently studying in physiotherapy. On today's topic, we will discuss about how to care for our joints. I'd like to give thanks to our Holy Trinity for this opportunity to share useful tips on managing our health, Julius for this segment, and Pastor Sky for this podcast platform. This is our disclaimer that all of these are general health advice. If you have any existing medical conditions or a doctor has given you any exercise recommendations or have any questions, you may consult a medical professional to get health advice suited for your situation. Without further ado, let's begin. Firstly, what is a joint? A joint is a part of your body where two or more bones meet to allow movement. For instance, your knee joint connects your thigh bone to your shin bone to allow you to bend and straighten your knee. Then, why care for your joints? If joints aren't taken care of, it can result in joint discomfort, pain, feelings of stiffness, achiness, grating sensation, and more. This can affect the function of your joint, limit your ability to sit, stand, walk, to go to school or to work, to do sporting activities, and hence affecting the quality of your life. Some examples of joint conditions include arthritis, such as osteoarthritis. This refers to cartilage within a joint breaking down and underlying bone changes. Then, what are some common causes of joint pain? There are various factors, but common ones specific to osteoarthritis include repetitive stress on a joint without proper strengthening of the muscles around that joint. For example, whether this is through excessive running or heavy occupational workloads that require lots of knee bending to pick things up. Other factors include aging, as the risk of developing osteoarthritis increases with age, gender, where women are more likely to develop osteoarthritis than men, especially after the age of 50. Other factors include additional weight, which adds more stress to the joints, genetics, if you have family history of osteoarthritis. If these factors are relevant to you and you currently have knee pain, it is advised that you can seek the guidance of healthcare professionals for specific advice to your circumstance. Then, let's move on to some myths on joint health. In total, there are 3 common myths which we will discuss more today. First myth: excessive running is bad for your knees. This is false. Due to the repetitive nature of running, it is understandable why many people might believe this is true. However, there is growing evidence to show that regular running on a recreational distance up to marathon distances has a protective effect against the development of knee osteoarthritis compared with non-runners. And regular running in fact increases knee health and function in the long term. It is only in the elite international runners who are running at very high volumes that have equivalent risk of developing knee osteoarthritis as compared to non-runners. Hence, for this group of people, targeted strengthening programs are important to reduce the risk of developing joint conditions. Overall, from current research, we can confidently say that running isn't bad for your knees. As to how to carry out this running more, we will elaborate on this later. Second myth: scans are effective at predicting pain and function. This is false. Some people with knee pain may have seen a doctor and taken scans such as X-rays or MRI. On these scans, some people may or may not have visible changes to their joints, such as abnormal bone growths and joint space narrowing. However, these changes aren't indicative of joint conditions like knee osteoarthritis when used on its own. This means that someone can have no changes in the scan but lots of knee discomfort. At the same time, someone can have many changes in the scan but no knee discomfort. What this means is that scans should not be used in isolation when determining whether someone has knee conditions or joint conditions. Hence, if you do take a scan, do take note of this for your joint pain and recovery. Number 3, surgery is the only thing that can improve arthritis. This is false. There are some biomechanical models to explain about knee conditions like arthritis, and these include wear and tear. These models do exist from decades ago, but they are too simplistic and have created a belief that if you replace the knee joint, you will not have any pain. Research has shown that this isn't true, and that people with knee pain can improve a lot through conservative treatment. It is recommended that surgery is the last resort if conservative treatment isn't effective. Now, with better understanding, let's move on to the final part on how we can take care of our joints. This segment is applicable to those with or without joint pain. Firstly, education and understanding. This is really important in understanding what is good and what is bad for our joints. By understanding, we know how to take action, and I will elaborate on this further. Number 2, nutrition. Getting good nutrition in terms of a good calcium intake is important for strong bones. This exists in the form of dairy products such as milk, cheese, and yogurt. Other good calcium sources are fish with edible bones like sardines, tofu, dark leafy green vegetables such as spinach and broccoli. Number 3, exercise. Exercise in the form of cardiovascular exercise and strengthening exercise. This is especially useful because exercise strengthens your muscles to better support your body. And exercise, in fact, encourages natural cartilage repair. Do remember to warm up and cool down properly, and do also remember to progress the amount of exercise you do gradually. Besides the hard work you do when you exercise, adequate recovery is equally important. Remember to get enough rest through sleeping, eating well-balanced meals. All of these will benefit you in your overall joint health. But if, let's say, you do experience joint pain, like knee pain, when doing exercises such as running, jumping, or kickboxing, this could be because these are high-impact activities which are too intense for your joints at your current state. Therefore, you may opt for low-impact activities such as cycling, swimming, or doing aquatic exercises, which means doing your usual strengthening exercises but in the water. And there's even something called aquatic jogging. If, let's say, jogging on land is painful for your joints, you can try jogging in the water with an aquatic belt, and this is known as aquatic jogging. All these forms of exercises are low-impact exercises which take load off your joints and allow you to still exercise while it not being too painful for your joints. And eventually, as you get better and better, you can move on to doing higher impact exercises such as walking on land, jogging on land, and strength exercises at the gym. Number 4, losing weight for those who are overweight or obese. This is because additional weight can be a cause of joint pain. Therefore, any amount of weight loss is likely to be beneficial. One can use the body mass index, in short BMI, as a rough guideline for appropriate weight for your height and age group. Number 5, activity modification. This means changing or making modifications to the activities you do in your daily life which cause knee pain. For instance, in your daily life, if you face lots of pain in your joints, and for instance, your knee joints, when you do your laundry because you require to carry heavy loads, then it is advisable for you to handle heavy loads with care by having a better posture when lifting weights, with a good grip on them and holding it close to your body. Alternatively, you can slide objects rather than lifting them where possible. Another example is, for instance, your occupation consists of manual labor. Then it is possible to discuss with your superiors if you are able to make modifications in the short term to reduce the amount of manual labor you do to reduce your joint pain. With the above advice, while all these are general advice, should you have existing joint pain, you may seek medical advice to get specific recommendations relating to your situation. This is especially good to do if your pain has been getting more severe despite doing things to relieve the pain. With that, we have come to the end of this segment on taking care of our joints. Thank you all for listening until here, and should you have any questions, do feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to answer them. Take care and goodbye.
And thank you so much, Inyu, from Singapore, with a wonderful episode of Health is Happiness, how to take care of your joints, and I hope that you guys benefited and learned a lot from this too. All right, so this is the end of today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Have an amazing Wednesday service tonight, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this.